scream tore through the air. A little boy collapsed, blood pooling across the concrete. The person holding the knife, a complete stranger. The first witness was his own mother, clutching her son in trembling arms, desperate and terrified. On the afternoon of June 3, 2024, the parking lot of the Giant Eagle supermarket in North Olmsted, Ohio, normally filled with the hum of car engines and hurried footsteps, suddenly turned into a scene of horror. When police arrived, the 3-year-old boy lay motionless, his breathing growing faint. Beside him, his mother had a wound on her shoulder, her face pale from shock and pain. The person who had just caused the tragedy, 32-year-old Bionca Ellis, did not run. She still held the knife, quietly walking away from the scene, her eyes empty. Less than an hour earlier, Ellis had been standing inside a police station inquiring about her belongings. Was it a sudden burst of madness, a random attack, or the final eruption of a mind that had long decayed? Only when the investigation began did it become clear. This was not some unforeseeable accident, but the consequence of a string of ignored warning signs. Bionca Ellis, 32, was no stranger to police across several states, and never for anything good. Homeless, unemployed, and with no family support, she drifted from place to place, sleeping in shelters or on the streets. Medical records indicate Ellis suffered from schizophrenia spectrum disorder and other psychiatric conditions, but she had never received consistent treatment. In 2024 alone, her name repeatedly appeared in police reports. February, Cleveland, Ohio. Police were called to a shelter after Ellis caused a disturbance. When officers escorted her away, she casually claimed she had killed someone in California. It sounded like a sick joke, but instead of conducting a deeper investigation, police only sent her for a psychiatric evaluation. What happened after that is unknown. March, Kissimmee, Florida. Ellis rented a hotel room but refused to pay. When asked to leave, she outright refused. In front of the police, she openly stated she wanted to be arrested, claiming jail was better than sleeping on the street. May 29 m, North Olmsted, Ohio. Ellis was spotted sitting in a wheelchair near a Walmart, appearing exhausted. Police checked on her and discovered she had an outstanding warrant for violating probation in a theft case. She was arrested but held for only 2 days. On May 31st, she was released, and just 3 days later, an innocent child lay dead under her knife. Looking back, each encounter with the system was a warning. Yet time and again, Ellis slipped through the cracks, and no one stopped her before everything spiraled out of control. On June 3, 2024, less than 4 days after being released, Bionca Ellis once again appeared on surveillance footage, this time in the reception area of the North Olmsted, Ohio police station. She had come to inquire about some personal belongings she claimed had not been returned after her previous detention. The desk officer calmly explained that the officer in charge of her earlier arrest was not on duty, and if she wanted the matter resolved, she would need to return on another day. Ellis seemed disappointed but made no scene, quietly walking out. However, just minutes after leaving the station, Ellis's steps led her somewhere entirely different, the Volunteers of America thrift store nearby. She didn't come to shop. She walked straight in and quietly took 2 kitchen knives. No one in the store noticed the theft, and no one realized that she was now armed. Had someone called the police at that moment, perhaps the rest of the afternoon might have unfolded differently. Leaving the store, Ellis walked to the neighboring Giant Eagle supermarket, clutching one of the stolen knives in her hand. At approximately 2:58 p.m., she spotted Margot Wood, 38, and her 3-year-old son Julian leaving the store. Ellis immediately turned around and began quietly following them out to the parking lot, where just moments later everything descended into a nightmare. That afternoon, the Giant Eagle parking lot bustled with shoppers and moving cars. Margot Wood had just loaded her groceries into the trunk and turned to lift her 3-year-old son out of the shopping cart. But from behind, Bionca Ellis suddenly closed in, her kitchen knife gleaming in the light. In an instant, the blade came down. Julian was stabbed repeatedly in the face, back, and chest, swift, deliberate strikes with no warning. Margot, frantic, tried to pull her son from the cart, but she, too, was stabbed in the shoulder. From the moment Ellis struck until she stopped, the entire attack lasted less than 5 seconds. The connection between attacker and victims, none at all. This was a completely random assault, erupting in broad daylight before the eyes of bystanders. Screams pierced the air as witnesses immediately called 911. Within minutes, police cruisers and ambulances arrived at the scene. Officers quickly secured the area, while paramedics rushed in to provide emergency aid to both victims. As soon as the area was secured, investigators approached the group of witnesses who had called 911. A middle-aged woman, still visibly shaken, recounted that she had been loading groceries into her car when she heard a blood-curdling scream. Turning around, she saw a woman dressed in black, holding a large kitchen knife, lunge toward the shopping cart and stab the child. The mother frantically tried to pull her son out of the cart, but was immediately stabbed in the shoulder. A man parked nearby said the attacker didn't run. Instead, she walked away calmly, still gripping the knife. He had tried to keep her in sight and pointed out her location to police when patrol units arrived. Another witness who had been sitting in his car described the suspect as walking without hurry, eyes fixed straight ahead, not saying a word. All the statements were consistent. The attack happened extremely fast, less than 5 seconds, and the suspect was a complete stranger to the victims. These details were carefully recorded by investigators and added to the initial 911 dispatch notes, helping pinpoint Bionca Ellis's movements and appearance just before her arrest. Using the descriptions provided by witnesses, patrol units quickly swept the surrounding area. Within minutes, officers spotted a woman matching the description walking just a few hundred meters from the scene. She was still holding a blood-stained knife, moving at a slow pace, her eyes vacant, as if entirely unaware of what had just happened. The suspect was immediately taken into custody and transported to the North Olmsted jail, the same place she had walked out of less than an hour earlier as a free woman. And in that brief span of time, Ellis had turned an ordinary afternoon into an irreversible tragedy. At the police station, after processing the arrest and seizing evidence, the case file was swiftly handed over to prosecutors. Within a short time, Ellis was facing multiple serious charges. 1 count of aggravated murder, 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of attempted murder, 2 counts of felonious assault, 1 count of child endangerment, 1 count of tampering with evidence, 1 misdemeanor theft count for stealing the knives from the Volunteers of America store. The preliminary hearing took place
2903.11A1 and/or endangering children in violation of Ohio Revised Code Section 2919.22B2. Our investigation was in progress or was about to be or likely to be instituted. Alter, destroy, conceal, or remove any record, document, or thing with the purpose to impair its value or availability as evidence in such proceeding or investigation. Count 10 alleges that on or about June 3, 2024, the defendant did with purpose to deprive the owner, Volunteers of America store, of property or services, to wit, knives, knowingly obtain or exert control over either the property or services without the consent of the owner or the person authorized to give consent.
Within the first week after the attack, the judge set bail at $5 million, emphasizing the severity and dangerous nature of her actions. In the courtroom, Julian Wood,
father of deceased, husband of Margot. Your Honor, that day, 1 week ago, she took everything from us. There's nothing that could ever replace my son, or anything that my wife and I, or even our other kids.
Julian's father, stood, his voice breaking yet firm, pleading with the court to deny bail entirely. to ensure Ellis remained behind bars forever so that no other family would suffer a loss like theirs. The atmosphere in the courtroom was thick with grief and outrage, reflecting the shock the case had brought to the North Olmsted community. Yet in the midst of this grief and anger, the defendant showed no remorse. As the judge finished reading the charges and announced the $5 million bail, Bionca Ellis looked up, the corner of her mouth curling into a cold smile. No tears, no apology, just an empty, defiant gaze as if what had happened was of no consequence to her. That moment left the courtroom silent, not because there was any doubt about the evidence, but because everyone present realized they were looking at someone who had severed the last thread connecting her to human remorse. A smile in a place where only the silence of regret should exist. What was it? Defiance? The ultimate coldness? Or simply the sign that, in her mind, the life of a child had never held any value at all?
Medical certainty that Miss Ellis has an unspecified skin.
In September 2024, after 20 days of evaluation at a specialized facility, the official report concluded that Bionca Ellis suffered from schizophrenia spectrum disorder along with other psychiatric conditions. The medical findings confirmed she was not malingering, but at that time she lacked the capacity to fully understand the legal proceedings or assist her defense team. The review board determined that restoration of competency was possible if she received antipsychotic medication, administered involuntarily as Ellis refused to take it voluntarily. By February 2025, after a period of mandatory treatment at North Coast Behavioral Health Care, her mental state had stabilized enough to meet Ohio's legal standard for competency to stand trial. The judge officially scheduled July 14, 2025 as the date for the full trial on all charges. The investigation concluded that the attack was entirely random. There was no personal connection or prior conflict between Ellis and the victims. Mental illness played a central role. Her long untreated psychiatric conditions combined with the psychological strain of homelessness and social isolation. Ellis had a history of deliberately breaking the law to be incarcerated, viewing jail as a temporary solution to her transient life. This supports the investigative theory that she may have committed an extremely serious crime intentionally to ensure long-term imprisonment, rather than face another cycle of brief arrests and releases. However, experts also noted that an acute psychotic episode may have diminished her ability to comprehend the immediate consequences, resulting in an attack that was rapid, violent, and lacking in clear preparation. Thus, this case is not just the story of a single crime, but a stark example of the dangerous gaps in early intervention and monitoring of high-risk individuals, particularly those living on society's margins with severe, untreated mental illness. From a legal standpoint, the Bionca Ellis case raises serious questions about the systems in place for supervising and managing mentally ill individuals after their release from custody. Are current risk assessment protocols sufficient to prevent such incidents? Or do dangerous gaps remain that leave the public vulnerable? Socially, the case has heightened fears about community safety in the face of unpredictable random acts of violence, whether in a parking lot, a park, or right outside one's home. This sense of insecurity extends beyond North Olmsted, resonating with communities nationwide. For the victim's family, the loss is immeasurable. The pain of losing a child, coupled with the haunting memory of the attack, will remain with them for life, inflicting lasting harm on their mental and emotional well-being. As the trial approaches, the ultimate question lingers. What punishment would be truly just for a case like this? Would life in prison, or even the death penalty, serve as an adequate deterrent? Or is the greater need a stronger legal and healthcare system capable of preventing such tragedies before they happen? Most importantly, what can society do to protect the innocent before another Bionca Ellis emerges?